Hello, and happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to our this session of Veeam Tech Bites. Cybersecurity posture tips you may have forgotten. Not only do we have an exciting Thursday Tech Bites planned for you, but it's also Thursday Night Football tonight. And as a Cleveland Browns fan, we have a big game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So go ahead and place your bets on who you might think may win this game tonight. Put it in the chat. I want to know how many people believe in my Browns like I do, right? Today we are joined by OTAVA and Brian and Chris from OTAVA. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Thanks, Kirsten. Brian Hokelman. I run the product and marketing and business development teams here at OTAVA. And so excited to be here, and I'm chuckling that you couldn't help yourself from mentioning the football teams you're rooting on here tonight. So appreciate being here. Thank you.
And I am Chris Borylski. I am the one of our product managers at OTAVA. I'm focused on business resilience and our cloud platforms.
Awesome. Thank you both for joining us today. We are also doing the map. So if you're tuning in, we want to know exactly where you're tuning in from. So make sure you put that in the chat as well. So today we're talking about cybersecurity posture tips you may have forgotten. And cybersecurity posture is something that never goes out of season. It never goes out of style. And it's top of mind for every IT professional today. A couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to attend Secure World Conference in Seattle. And there was a lot of sessions that talked about, single point of failure, zero trust, cybersecurity frameworks, and even securing your hybrid cloud environment. Because, a lot of organizations today are running in the hybrid cloud. And one thing I really took away from this event was not only is it important to have a cybersecurity strategy, but it's also important to do the proper testing and not rely on any specific vendor for resiliency. You really need to have an integrated solution between security and data protection. So let's jump into some of these slides. Now, Brian, Chris, talk a little bit more about the slide that you have prepared for us today.
Yeah, I think we're just trying to give you a perspective in terms of the impacts of a cyber attack and really what goes on within the organization. And some of them are fairly detrimental. And so, I think we all recognize this. And one of the interesting things that I think we're seeing in terms of the evolution of cyber attacks is the frequency. So we know that in the past, there was maybe one attack per year, but now we're seeing organizations be compromised 2, 3, 4 times a year. We think that there's an increased focus on the actual backups. And so 90% of these bad actors are actually targeting the backups because that's your point of last resort to recover. And then finally, we're seeing, these bad actors actually live in the network for extended periods of time. So we're recognizing that these bad actors are in the network for sometimes north of 200 days. And then the approaches are changing, right? So obviously we're trying to protect the backups, reduce the attack surface, but there seems to be an emerging tactic where they're leveraging social engineering and AI in particular. So they are getting into the organization and actually representing certain personas or individuals inside the organization and getting them to communicate ways that they want to extract different either compromises or money, just pure money out of the organization. So I think the social engineering and AI is now becoming a prevalent tactic that they're using in the cyberspace right now. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that you nailed it on the head, right? A big part of modern cybersecurity is really about training and awareness, right? So it starts with people, it starts with your team understanding all of the things that Brian just talked about, knowing that these threats, these specific social engineering and AI related threats are coming. And whether you have integrated security, like you talked about, Kirsten, where you've got multiple facets, you still need to have those people that know what they're looking for and know how to react when they see something.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you guys said here as well. I think every time I look at these statistics, I always think about the 85% of companies have experienced at least one ransomware attack in the past year. That's more than half of companies. So really, this is something that we need to start thinking about within our disaster recovery solutions, our backup plans. And I think working in the backup industry for so long in the backup space, we talk to a lot of organizations and companies, and you say, do you guys have a backup? And nowadays, a lot of people do have a backup, but there's still some of those organizations that might not be the first thing they think about when they're thinking about their IT strategy. But it's still very important, just looking at these statistics here, to have a backup plan, right? And a backup plan that is not only, going to be able to recover your data, but it's also hybrid flexible. So if you have some of your data on premises, some of your data running in the cloud, maybe you're utilizing an as a service solution, right? Making sure the backup solution is going to be able to protect all that data. And it's also cyber integrated. It has some type of cyber tools to help discover this suspicious activity, these malicious actors coming in and trying to infiltrate your data. And I know oh, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I was just going to reinforce that, Kirsten. I think, Veeam's done a great job just in terms of supporting data portability. So your ability to now support, I think, 6 hypervisors, Nutanix, AHV, Proxmox, Oracle, et cetera, now MongoDB. And so it's really, you're agnostic. You're kind of in the middle, and you're able to protect any type of workload. And so that's really exciting. And then all the things that have happened with 12.1, 12.2, what we see coming down the road, it's inline real-time detection for us. Instead of reacting, we're being proactive now in terms of identifying a threat and isolating it in real time. And so those are huge steps forward for our customers that we're talking to.
Yes, exactly. So for organizations that might just be, getting started with their cybersecurity strategy, what are some of the frameworks that you guys follow here at OTAVA? I know there's a number of them.
Yeah, so we started with the industry standard. So a NIST framework in terms of our ability to detect, respond, recover, identify, and protect the data estate. And we'll talk a little bit about our conversation that we have with our customers, because this is the best practice, and we've built a product portfolio around it. But it can be a little bit overwhelming for customers, because if they're not sophisticated, they're not advanced in their security posture, it can feel like there's a lot coming at them. But what we want to do here is really identify, like, hey, here's the things that you need to think about, and then organizationally, how do you reinforce these, right? So you can have individual functional teams that do each one of these things, or you can have kind of a cyber czar who's kind of responsible. It's akin, or it's a part of the CISO organization, who's really like working to make sure that the workflows, the processes, and the tactics that you're deploying are consistently adhered to, right? So it's not one and done. This is an ongoing effort and investment that all organizations have to make.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think, when we talk about NIST, right, so the National Institute of Standards and Technology, they've done a lot of really good work with this framework. And to Brian's point, it's very high level. It's very process oriented, very giving you the ideas that you need to start thinking about, right? Because when we talk about, so govern, you see it in the center of that, the infographic there is really the glue that holds the rest of the pieces together. It's all about roles of different people within the organization, whether you have your security czar or, every like we talked about on the last slide, every individual's role within keeping and maintaining a security posture, and then how they function within each of these other pieces to ensure that we are staying on top of our security and reacting and having those plans in place, like you talked about, Kirsten. Do you have a continuity plan? What is it? When's the last time you updated it or tested it? Right? So having all of these things in place, that's really what NIST and the CSF was going for here, is starting the conversation and getting you things to think about. But it's very big, it's very broad, so it's a starting point.
Yeah, I agree. And what over the years, what I've seen this NIST framework do, it's added that govern piece, which basically means that, it's innovating the framework as along with how ransomware is also, getting more sophisticated. So that means that it's really trying to protect businesses and the challenges that they have with, these threat actors today, and helping businesses also navigate that cyber terrain, because as we've seen, ransomware is getting more sophisticated. There's these new avenues. You have, advanced AI, helping with these threat actors. You have advanced phishing emails that seem more and more real every day. So it's really important that the frameworks that we follow are also innovating to address these new types of ways of entry, these new types of technologies that are getting into our organization's data. And even when I look at this framework too, identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, and govern, backup always has a place within this framework with the recovery piece, right? Really making sure that you're able to recover that data. I would also think with the Veeam data platform, detecting, utilizing some of those features within the data platform to help detect that suspicious activity so you can mitigate as quickly as possible. And then I'll also think about identifying those critical applications before an attack. These are our most critical applications. We need to make sure that we're limiting access to these applications, like only people who need access have access, putting in those barriers now to make sure that, if a threat actor does get in, it doesn't wipe out all of your critical infrastructure. We have some sort of separation there to make sure that we can still protect our infrastructure, right?
Yeah, I think those are great. Those are great points. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just going to say, with the, you mentioned the Veeam data platform and how it touches on so many of these different pieces, with all of the advances that the Veeam team and the Veeam engineers have done such a good job of, is really giving it more breadth than just it's not just backups anymore, right? And having backups is good, but having a solution, like a full solution that really touches on multiple pieces, is so helpful for businesses everywhere.
It's all people, process, and technology. So Veeam's brought so many great tools to the forefront and for companies like OTAVA to leverage from a technology perspective. But one of the things that we really spend a lot of time on with our clients is the people and the process piece of it, right? Because that's just an ongoing investment that you have to have, and you have to have that rigor in the business. And those tend to be the most challenging in terms of organizational adoption, right? Because you're trying to impose potentially new workflows. You have to get people committed in terms of, hey, this is part of their job function. They have to stay committed to it. It's not one and done. It's a continuous effort. So it's really the entire solution set that has to be deployed and maintained in the organization that adheres to this NIST framework.
Yeah, that's completely right. And, even at that event I talked about in Seattle, the Secure World, they talked about the importance of having tabletop exercises and actually going through a scenario with the team and involving all the correct people. So you're right. It's better to be, over prepared than not prepared at all. And talking about people, I heard that the map entries are ready. So let's switch over to the map and see where everybody is tuning in from. So in North America, we have New Hampshire, California, and Oklahoma. I actually just watched Twisters, the second one, and it's based in Oklahoma. So I hope the tornado season's over. That was a terrifying movie, personally. We also have our friends in Canada, Ontario, representing. We love our Canadians. In Europe, we have United Kingdom. Rickatron's on the line tuning in. He's actually on a plane. So is he in the UK or is he over the ocean? And can we actually light up the Atlantic Ocean in this scenario? I don't know. We have to check the back end. And then in Africa, we have Nigeria. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if we have some late joiners, be sure to also type in where you're watching from. So at OTAVA, you guys have a secure approach, right? So let's talk about a little bit more about the approach you bring to your customers.
Yeah, I think, this is a methodology, and back to the original statement, which is it can be really overwhelming. Like, so if you come into an organization, you're like, okay, you have, 128 vulnerabilities you need to deal with. I mean, that's quite an overwhelming way to start the conversation. So we try to decompose the vulnerabilities into this framework and talk about each one of them, just in terms of how you manage it, how you deploy it, and how you maintain it. And I'll give you a little bit of a advertisement. We do an initial assessment where we kind of look at the vulnerabilities from an external perspective, and then we talk to customers about, okay, so let's rank those vulnerabilities. Let's talk about where they fall within this framework, and how do we build basically a technology roadmap around adoption, and then the people and process changes that have to happen in the organization. So that's our approach. I think it helps people, deal with the challenges of ransomware and cybersecurity in a more methodical way. And then it helps us kind of dive deep into a particular category and stay kind of focused on that part of the vulnerability posture that we think is most important to solve the fastest. I'll let Chris kind of jump into the letters and talk a little bit more about what each of these letters represent in our secure framework.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, so we have, S for shrink, which is shrinking the attack surface, E for examine, that's monitoring, that's analyzing any data that we can get our hands on. C for contain, containing any attacks that might have gotten through those first two pieces, right? U for undo, so that's our backups, right? That's undoing any data loss that might have happened. R for recover, so that's really recovering systems versus data, right? So we talk about backups as focused on data. R for our DRAS solutions, really getting those systems back up as quickly as we can. And then the last one is evaluate, right? So it's always iterative. All of your security, everything should be iterative, right? So you go through this whole process, you set up these different pieces. So you've got your firewalls in place, you've got WAF, you've got monitoring, and hopefully multiple different levels, right? Monitoring is such an important piece, and you mentioned Veeam Data Platform a little bit ago, where it gives us that additional insight. So if you're using a dedicated monitoring platform, great. Now you've got these added pieces that are also monitoring other parts, or might catch things that your dedicated monitoring solution might not see. Then we go through, right? You have, backup testing, backup plans, doing all of that, having it ready, and then evaluate it, right? Go walk back through that whole thing. Did you get it right? Did you get everything that you need? Knowing what your most critical pieces are, knowing what needs to come first, what can wait, what needs longer retention, right? Or shorter retention, or what have you. So that's really, we like to meet our customers where they are, and then walk through this whole process and set up a plan to get where they want to be versus where they are.
And I think it's a cradle to grave type of approach. And so we already mentioned, we do the initial assessment, we have some opinions, we have some observations that we mature through that process. We come in and then we try to nest or we try to frame up the conversation in these areas. And then we have a secure score that we're rolling out right now as well, and Chris is a big part of that. So that's the ongoing view. As the attack threats change, we're able to kind of articulate, okay, things, we thought the attack surface was really well protected, 6 months ago, but now we're seeing these new threats, and our secure score can start to highlight those potential vulnerabilities. And it even takes into consideration customer-owned solutions, right? So it doesn't have to be an OTAVA solution. We can actually look at maybe a third-party firewall that is being deployed in the customer environment and score against that as well. So it's a holistic, comprehensive view of the ongoing security posture of a given customer. And so, we take it all the way from the beginning of the relationship all the way to an ongoing kind of, hey, let's do a health check, a security health check every 6 months, and come back and visit with that customer and really make sure that we're not just doing it once and then the security posture degrades over time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really love how you guys are doing the scorecard and the health check. When I think about a health check, I always think about in Veeam we have the security and compliance analyzer. This is something that will check your backup infrastructure components and then just make sure that it is following, security best practices and configuration best practices. And every organization probably has different rules for how they want their backup infrastructure set up, but at least by running this you can check against these security guidelines and say, okay, well, I didn't know that this certain protocol should be disabled, or I didn't know I wasn't following the 3-2-1 rule, or I didn't realize I didn't have immutable backup copies set up. I thought I was sending to the immutable storage I set up like months ago, but I forgot to enable a little checkbox type of thing. So just having those health checks and having someone, double check or even review what you have set up is going to be really helpful in making sure that your infrastructure stays resilient.
Yeah, no, that's great. We're actually, going to talk about it right here, right? This is the stuff that we love about working with Veeam, is getting to dive into the threat center and that security scorecard and being able to utilize that as a CSP to provide our customers with that added information, right? So we've got the scorecard itself, the development of the immutable storage. So when we talk about all these different pieces and then we reference back to the secure framework or the NIST framework, we get to have all of these pieces touched in one big platform, right? So as we use Veeam more and you guys develop more and more features, we talk about the 4ISO authorization, right? Having the ability to check someone if there is, somebody got hit by a phishing attack. Well, now we got to have 2 people that get hit by a phishing attack with the same permissions. We have the threat center, we have the malware scanning, the inline malware scanning, right? So now you've got an AV on your live system. We've also got an AV built into your backup system. So we can scan all of that after the backup is done, kick off an on-demand if we need to, right? Automate it, ready to rock and roll. So we get all of these different, we get contain, we get examine, we get evaluate, we get undo, we get recover, all touched by the Veeam data platform. That's why we love working with you guys.
Yeah, awesome. I love the Threat Center. The Veeam Data Platform Advanced is really what has this Veeam One functionality within the Threat Center. And Veeam One is a part of the Veeam Data Platform, and it's always been, Veeam Backup and Replication's best friend. And there's a lot of features within the advanced platform, right, that you can use to help highlight suspicious activity or threats. I always think of me and my former coworker. We always would talk about the VM with no backup alarm, right? making sure that the first things first is that you're making sure all your machines are protected if they need to be protected. So when that ransomware attack does happen, you have a recoverable backup, or hopefully you can recover from that backup, right? And a backup was never taken. Also, some of the reports that I love is just like the immutable workloads report. You've set up immutability, but can you confirm that your immutability time period hasn't changed? Well, yeah, you run this report, right? And it'll show you all your immutable workloads, how many immutable restore points you have, and making sure that you're in compliance with your organization's standards and requirements. And then also, restore activity. Since Rickatron is watching, he always says, like, don't let backup be the back door to your security strategy, making sure that you have eyes and ears on what changes are happening, who's performing restores, what type of restores they're performing, where the restore is going, so Veeam One is really one of these tools that's going to provide you that observability that you need here.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's a relatively new it's a relatively new tool for CSPs to really dig their teeth into. But one of the things that I love as a CSP, and selfishly as a CSP, right, when we talk about access to the platform, we get to control that, right? So even if a customer has an incident, those backups are completely separated from their production environment. So we get to contain that away from them. So if they have an incident, we have full control over that backup environment and the immutable copies, so that they don't have to worry about, okay, so this malicious attack happened. Now we have to figure out what's going on with our backups. Well, we at OTAVA have you covered because it's a completely separate domain. It's completely segmented out. You don't have to worry about it. And we've got all of the threat mapping and reports ready to prove to you that everything is safe and secure.
Yes,
No,
go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, Kirsten. Yeah, and we were afforded the privilege of promoting Chris up out of the operations side of our business, right? So he was a threat center junkie and really, was working day in and day out, and it's such a hugely valuable tool. And then your ability just to give access and visibility to customers so they know, it's just a visual representation of how well we're doing as a partner to the customer in managing, this environment for them. So it's, Chris has done a great job of kind of bringing that to life from a product perspective.
Yes. And, speaking of environments, we do have an updated map that is ready to be shown. So we have had more people tuning in throughout this show today. In Europe, we have Denmark. Hello. In Africa, we have Angola. I hope I pronounced that right, because I'm known to mispronounce things. And then in Asia Pacific region, we have India. And lastly, we have Pakistan. Thank you guys all for joining us today to listen to our talk. And we do have, I think, just one more slide here, just a call to, oh, no, I lied. We have a couple more slides here. I'm sorry, guys. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about this challenge and how OTAVA helped your customer be able to recover and stay resilient.
Yeah, so this is, when we put everything that we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes, we put it all together, right? So we had a customer, an active customer that was going through a compliance and security review. So we sat down with them I think it was over a month or two, right? And built out this full Veeam data platform plan for them, including the anomaly scanning and immutable storage and 4ISE authorization, utilizing a customer premise dedicated Veeam One instance. So they have all of these reports and all of the threat center tools that they needed to really step up their game from a security and compliance standpoint, so that instead of just having backups, now they've got a full comprehensive solution in place going forward to meet all of those compliance and security needs that they were admittedly lacking and caught up to modern standards.
Yeah, I love this. I always love to hear about how, organizations, our partners are helping our customers make sure that they are recoverable and resilient, right? So great stuff here. Um, and then yeah, so don't be a stranger, right? So so where does this QR code? I didn't test it. So
This is
where
yeah,
is
this is the QR code that will just take you to the landing page to register for one of our initial free assessments. From outside in, what are observations? Where do we see, blatant vulnerabilities? How do we, what are the recommendations that we're going to have? We can do that for free of charge, and then do a follow up readout for probably 30 or 45 minutes after we've done the assessment. So click on the QR code, get to the landing page, enter a little bit of information, and we'll be in touch with you.
Awesome. Well, before we end this session today, I just want to highlight next Tuesday, we do have an Industry Insights with Jeff and the team at Atos talking NIS2 and compliance. So if you're around, be sure to tune in to that show next Tuesday. And I want to thank the OTAVA team, Brian, Chris. Thank you guys so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. It's been great.
Awesome. And I hope everybody has, a great rest of the week. And I hope my Browns, win tonight. And I hope I didn't curse them by saying that. So thank you all and have a great day.